Just get my microphone on here. Okay, hopefully I'm coming through clear. I've had some warnings on the stream this morning that it was going a bit slow and experiencing buffering. So we'll see how this goes. Let me know in the comments if we're having any buffering issues or anything like that, and I'll keep an eye on the comments. I may have to stop the stream and then restart it on a lower quality setting to try and get that coming through to you guys without experiencing those buffering issues. I'm new to this, so my apologies if it's not completely perfect at this stage, but we'll work out all those bumps as we go along over the next few days, next few weeks. I plan on doing this each morning at 10 a.m. Sydney time, Australian Eastern Standard Time, during the weekdays, Monday to Friday. So I won't be here tomorrow or Sunday, but I'll be back on Monday morning with another version of this: Photoshop, photography, photo critique like we're doing this morning, all this good stuff. What have we got? Wow, I get to hear Adam say, "G'day, how you doing?" Adam Williams here from Easy Way Photography. That's a bit of an in-joke for the students at Easy Way Photography. I annoy them on every single video with the "G'day, how you doing?" So there's one for my good mate Philip there, a student of mine. Neville says morning. Neville's with us again. Hey Locke, how you doing? We're live on YouTube. Say hi to the camera.
Hi, Daddy.
Yeah.
There's a barcode on my Beyblade Stadium.
Oh, okay. We'll do that later. All right. See you, mate. My little boy. There you go. Okay, who else have we got here? Someone else. Vito says morning as well. Looks like the stream's going okay so far, fingers crossed. Okay, so the way this is going to work this morning is I think I've got 10 or so images up here that I want to run through and give some detailed critique on, talk about what could be improved, what are the good points, etc., etc. Now I'm going to keep it very friendly and not too harsh because I don't want to crush any passions or photography dreams. But at the same time, it's going to be very constructive and hopefully everyone will get a lot out of it. Now, I was doing this a couple of months ago and I've taken a break from the critique and I've got some time to do it now. And what I asked for was an image and then a little bit about the story of the image or what the photographer was trying to convey or achieve through that image. So let's jump into it. Let's get started. Now I chose this image from Sharon initially, and we'll see that in a minute once I get past the description. And the reason I chose this is because it's very important. I'm always talking about the importance of the story and conveying emotion and, capturing or conveying your innermost, deepest thoughts on life or whatever it happens to be within your photography. But Sharon says, "You speak of this often, as in me, but one of my biggest struggles is having a story or feeling to accompany the image I capture." She asks, "Doesn't anyone take photos anymore just for the sheer love of it? I love taking photos of places and single trees mainly, and then processing these photos and hoping I can achieve an end result that I'm happy with." The reason I chose this is because, yes, I do talk about this a lot, but absolutely the number one goal should be to love and enjoy what we do. Absolutely. You don't need to have a story. If you love what you do, you've already achieved the highest pinnacle in photography, in my opinion. Now, what tends to happen, and I'm speaking from experience of 10 or 12 or maybe even longer than that now, years in photography, is it's all fun and awesome and a passion and really enjoyable in the first 2, 3, 4 years, but then it starts to wane a little bit. And for me, when it did start to wane, what I found was that if I could give my photography a higher level of purpose and a higher level of meaning, then that passion was able to be maintained on a higher level for a longer period of time without kind of losing that mojo and maybe even losing the passion for photography altogether. So if you are enjoying photography, you're already at the pinnacle, don't worry about it. But if maybe you've lost your mojo, then maybe you can look to add more story, more meaning, more emotion, more purpose into your photography. Or maybe that's just something you want to do. I hope that makes sense. Let's move into it. Mako DC official. Morning, dude. Morning, dude. Back to you too. Awesome. Where's everyone from? Let me know down in the comments where you're from also. I'd love to see where everyone's at. I hope everyone's well, staying safe. Anyway, let's get into this image. So, Sharon says, I love single trees and minimalistic compositions. I love an open and uncomplicated landscape. I don't get it very often, but when I do, I get really excited. She remembers being driven around a friend's property sightseeing and almost jumping out of the vehicle when she turned the corner and saw this single tree. She couldn't get out quick enough. I also remember rushing to get the shot so that everyone else in the vehicle didn't get annoyed while they were waiting. All I could think in my mind was, for God's sake, don't stuff this up. It was close to midday, not the best light, but to be honest, it didn't matter in the slightest because it was always and always will be, I messed that up, didn't I? Because it was and always will be all about that tree on a hill. Okay, I remember having nightmares at school reading out aloud and they're all coming flooding back to me now. So give me a break if I mess up some of the words or whatnot. But essentially Sharon is having a great time with her photography, just loving it, loves single trees on the hill. Not a great deal of story, but as we said, that doesn't really matter, but we will touch on that as we move through some of the other images. Here we go. So what I might do, I might just grab my brush. Let's put a blank layer down, B for brush. Let's grab a bit of a red marker pen. Here we go. Okay, single tree on the hill, absolutely classic composition, often makes a really interesting photograph, and we've seen these style of compositions or photographs also do very well on social media for likes and comments if you're into that sort of stuff, which I kind of am, we kind of all are, it's hard to avoid it, and competitions and the like. Beautiful composition here, very simplistic as Sharon said. One tree on the hill, sitting roughly on the rule of thirds line there. Horizon on the rule of thirds, which is a nice thing too. Beautiful sweeping leading line here coming back to that main subject, which is awesome. And another line coming in this direction also leading in. So you've got that really strong subject, which is great. And for me, interesting photographs. I have a little bit of a formula on that. I always like to have, or I always like to look for, not necessarily have in all my photographs, but a strong subject, great light, and what was the other one? Strong subject, great light, and simplicity. Okay? They're the three main things I'm looking for. So Sharon has, let me just turn off that arrow, those arrows there. Sharon has the strong subject, tick, awesome. She has pretty good light for what was midday light, or at least it's been processed and handled really, really well. And the simplicity, absolutely. So this makes a really strong photograph. I think it's got a lot of good points going with it. How would I look to improve this? To be honest, there isn't a lot. Maybe we could look at, how does black and white work? Let's have a quick look at that. Maybe that could be an option. It would just be a different version of the same thing. It's not an improvement. And because of the simplicity of the image, it works quite well. We could even maybe bump up the yellows within the black and whites here in Photoshop, and we might get a little bit more light there. We might even knock down the blues to give the sky a little bit more drama, like so. And it's not a better version, it's just a different version, because the original was a really good image all by itself. Thanks for that, Sharon, and keep enjoying what you do. It's not all about the story, it's all about loving what we do in photography. How are we going with the stream? Gay says, hi everyone from Mandurah. Hi Gay, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. And we've got Sue. Hello from Mackay. Sue is an Easy Way student, and I think Gay is too. I recognise both of those names, very familiar to me. I think they might have even done my recent workshops when I travelled around Australia to all those different locations. Okay, let's move along to the next image. Also, let me know down below, let me know in the comments as we're going what you might improve in any of these images, and I'll have a look at that as I get to the end of each image. Al Oakes says, I would like to project on the contrast between black and white and at the same time shapes and at the same time with shades of colors also in the image in the same place. Let's turn off. Okay, so looking to project those black and whites and also the colors, or the contrast maybe between the black and white sections and the color sections of the image is how I'm reading that description. Again, not a really emotive story or feeling behind the image, and I will say, depending on where you're at with your photography, really trying to infuse that inner feeling in your photography, whether it's something you're feeling in life in general, or whether it happens to be something that you're feeling whilst capturing the photo in the landscape. So you might be seeing something really incredible, takes your breath away, and you really want to try and capture that and portray that to our audience, that really spectacular scene. This is a relatively spectacular scene, and it is beautiful the way you have those black and white sections and the color sections through the middle. The color here, if I add a layer there, the color section kind of in through here being the subject, in my opinion. This section here would become the subject. Now, to me, how would I improve this image? To be honest, maybe I'd like to maybe see something more bold as a subject chosen. And I like the way maybe there wasn't anything. You know, maybe there wasn't a mountain or a river or a waterfall or something like that, in which case you've done an incredible job in isolating off and using that play on color and black and white as a subject within this image. But normally in my own photography, as I said, I'm looking for big bold subjects, great light and simplicity. Now, doesn't really have that big bold subject. It's got the subject as in that colored fields within the central region. The light is not spectacular, and that is something that we might look to improve on. And the simplicity it's kind of there, but we can also potentially improve on that. Let's have a little bit of a play. I don't want to spend too much time on any one particular image, but to maybe get a little bit more simplicity, I'm thinking we might add a solid color layer in white. And you might think, what on earth is that going to achieve? But if we lower the solid color layer's opacity down quite a bit, we get this kind of misty, foggy feeling. Okay, something like that. If I click on the layer mask there and press Command or Control I to invert, oh, I'm going to have to mess around with my brush, aren't I? Because I've got a different brush setting. All right, let's just get a decent brush setting here and do a quick little. Now, what this solid color layer will do is it will allow me to maybe just hide off some of the other areas which aren't so important here. And it will help to really, maybe, I might completely wreck this image. And just remember, it's just an option. It's just an option. You don't have to do that. And you can see with that solid color layer, I'm kind of isolating very roughly, probably a bit too much there, very roughly, we are highlighting by removing some of the attention from the surrounding areas a little bit. We're highlighting those beautiful greens in the middle. Now, what if the sun happened to just break through the clouds for a brief moment and cast some golden light? And look, maybe you're into reality and you don't want to do this, but for those that do, I have a great technique called painting with pure sunlight. Check this out. Solid color layer again. And look, this is just random techniques. It's not a complete workflow, so keep that in mind too. So we've got the solid color layer. I've chosen a brownish color, and I'll move down to, what am I looking for? Color dodge. Okay, color dodge. So that's giving us that kind of look. And that's pretty nice. If that wasn't perfect, we would double click on the brown square here and maybe choose another color, but I quite like that color. Click on the layer mask, Command or Control I to invert. Let's assume the light was coming in from the left-hand edge here, and I'll just lower that opacity down a little bit. We can get a little bit of light on the grass there, a little bit of light on that grass, a little bit of light on these trees here. And you see with a couple of little layers there, we're just going to tidy that up. I don't want too much light on that hill on the background. How have we gone there? I've probably ruined it. Let's turn those layers off. Before and then after. I don't know. Different, might be better. Have a play around. But for me, big bold subject, simplicity is pretty good as is, and great light are the three components I'm really looking to get out of every image. And I think by using those two layers, we can enhance what we have here a certain degree. What have we got on the live feed? Ah, Mary's with us. Hey Mary, how you doing? Mary was at my workshop in Sydney, absolutely. Phil Cope says, good work, Adam. Always interesting. Great stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Tim Matthews, geez, we've got a whole bunch of people just joined us. Oh, Tim Matthews, I missed you before, mate. Okay, you're already in there. Great to have everyone watching along. Let me know what you think of these images. My apologies if I'm wrecking some of them as we go. I'm just using my eye and my knowledge to maybe tweak and improve and give you some ideas on how to improve your own images. Keep in mind, big bold subject, great light, simplicity. And then when we get those photos into Photoshop, we're really working on enhancing those three things if possible. And if you look back at the two videos I did in the previous 2 days, you'll see that same philosophy. Mike says, this image is quite personal to myself. I have posted it before in various forums, and a big but in that, I have never brought it to life in print. Well, maybe you should do that. Absolutely. I know Mike very well. He's got a gallery up there at near on the Sunshine Coast, Yamundi Markets. If you drop into Yamundi Markets, I'm sure, is that the Mike? Pretty sure that's Mike Turgois. Sorry, Mike, if I've got the wrong Mike there, but I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, maybe bring it to life in print. Maybe just not ready to share the narrative with others just yet. So these are my feelings on this image. My shadow is long. The warmth in my soul begins to build as the beauty of the day unfolds. Let's check it out. Oops. Okay. Stunning image. I think everyone at home will agree. Let's take a look at that little bit of criteria that I always try and get in my images. And you don't have. Okay, sorry about that. I just saw that the streaming software disconnected and reconnected, so I just paused there for a minute. But we should be back on. Fingers crossed. I've got decent 4G running on my mobile phone here, so hopefully we don't get too many of those outages. Okay, absolutely gorgeous light, strong subject, simplicity, tick, tick, tick. The processing is exceptional. What would I do to improve this image? Not a lot. Although there is one thing that maybe I would look to do. It looks like the subject in the center of this image is flying a drone with a big white controller in their hands. I might look to clone out the controller and maybe even clone out sections of the arms that are kind of up perpendicular to the body. So it looks more like the subject is standing and contemplating out into the, off to the sunrise and off to the horizon, contemplating life, contemplating those types of things. Because what I get from this image as a story, which is really important, and I've mentioned that a couple of times, what I'm getting is one of, a big wide world with us tiny little humans, and often we get isolated from, whatever it happens to be, or we feel lonely amongst this big wide world. And what I get from this is a sense of solace, of standing at the brink of nature and just enjoying that warmth of the sunrise. So to really complete that story for me, and maybe the artist, maybe Mike, that isn't the same story for you, but to really complete that story for me, maybe if that is a drone controller, I would look to maybe remove that from the image and maybe also clone out the sections of the arm so we just see the head and the body more, so looking out and contemplating the big wide world and the future, what the future might hold, which is rather surreal at this moment in time, I feel. It looks like we're back and we're streaming pretty well. Fingers crossed we don't get too many more hiccups. Let's move along. I can't really improve that. Brilliant image. Using that shadow as kind of a draw-in point for the leading line. Perfect. Doug Porter, a good friend of mine and a very talented photographer. Doug, you don't really need any critique on your images, to be honest, but seem I've got it here. Let's have a look. Doug says, The Unseen. I think that's the image title. Our often overlooked and forgotten people are far too common, taboo in our busy society. Do we look but not really see? There but for the grace of God go I. Okay, very poetic title. And Doug is a very emotive photographer. And I think you can probably find Doug's work. Let's clear this away. You can probably Google fresco images there and look up Doug's work. He's a very emotive photographer, and I am a huge Doug Porter fan. And you can see here in typical Doug style, very emotive image. Let's run through those top 3 criteria that I'm looking for generally. I could add 4 to that. That would be story. Okay, and we'll add that on the end. So strong subject, yes. Let's add that in there, and we've got our nice red brush. Strong subject. Great light. Yeah, the light is really nice. It's probably not what we would consider the traditional great light, that golden light of sunrise or sunset, but the light is very complementary to the story, a real grungy, dark feeling to this image. So that is great light, tick. And simplicity. Let me break simplicity down on another level. Simplicity to me means, well, let's go with a distraction. So a distraction is kind of something that goes against simplicity. A distraction is any element or anything within our photograph that doesn't directly relate or help tell the story we're trying to tell. And I think in this case, for Doug's story, and we'll get to story in a minute, for Doug's story, I think the majority of the elements within this image all come together to help tell the story. We have what looks to be a homeless person maybe struggling here at the bottom of the stairs. It seems to be nighttime with the lights turned on in the middle of a big city. And here we have a passerby that just is wandering past, maybe didn't see the person in need there. And I'm sure we've all been in that situation before of, in some respects, we're kind of conditioned to, I don't know, just go about our daily life in this scenario, isn't it? And this image really questions whether that's the right thing to do. And that's what art is about. Art is about taking something that we feel deeply about, posing the question to our audience, and letting them make up their own mind about the answer or the problem or it can be something really happy and bright, much more brighter like the image we saw before as well. So that's really interesting. So yeah, absolutely. I think all of these elements come together. We've got some nice kind of leading lines here which are connecting the dots between the subject here and the passerby, which have that great relationship. I mean, you could even say that that's a leading line there, and that's another leading line coming in there. That's another one there. So there's a lot, and there's another one running down those stairs as well, I suppose. There's a lot of lines all pulling us to that main focal point there. And then once we get to that point, we can then join the dots together about what this image means. Okay, so this is a super powerful image with a super powerful story. So congratulations there, Doug. I hope everyone at home's enjoying this one too, as much as I am. Have we got any more? No more, okay. Hello, sir. Hello, who's that? Oh, I don't know what those characters mean as far as a name is concerned, but welcome. Lovely to have you here. Altered Image Studio has dropped in. Oh, we have our friend from Norway, Torben. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that either. Anthony, good to have you here as well. Anthony was with us one of the other days. 7:30 a.m. in the West, should still be in bed. Yeah, sorry about that, Gay. 10 a.m. is a good time for me after I get up, do my emails, and then jump into this before I get into any other work I might have. All right. Beautiful image, Doug. Well done. There's not much that I could say to improve it. I will add one thing on an improvement level here for Doug, and that is, and I think I can answer my own question, does the texture, I can see like a crumpled, scrumpled paper texture in the background here. Does that texture add to the story or not? And I can already draw a metaphor from that, and that is that the crumpled paper is kind of that throwaway society. You know, take the problems, crunch them up and throw them away and ignore them maybe. I'm not sure. So maybe that texture is warranted within this image, but always consider all of those elements. Does the texture help tell the story? Do the lights, does the darkness tell the story? All of those little elements, do they help tell the story? And as I said at the beginning, if you're not into telling stories, then don't worry about it. Just love what you do and enjoy your photography. All right, Graham Gall here. Graham is also an Easy Way Photography student, I believe. I don't recognize all of my students' names because there's about 7,000, 8,000 students that I've had over the last 3 years learning Photoshop with me. And if you're interested, go and check out easywayphotography.com.au. There's a free course on the homepage there. So there's no need to sign up and pay money in these troubled times. There's plenty of free tutorials there. And in actual fact, if we're talking about free tutorials, I have another website for the advanced Photoshop users, which talks about composition. I'm not compositing, like blending multiple images together, at thebohemiumcreative.com.au. And there's also a little free course over there with 3 or 4 tutorials to keep you busy if you've got a bit of time on your hands. Graham says, this is an abandoned jetty at Weirs Cove, Kangaroo Island. I was just there last year. Spectacular location. Really suffered from the bushfires. In fact, not so long ago in Australia. Graham says, I felt overwhelmed and in awe of nature as I looked down on this abandoned jetty in Weirs Cove on Kangaroo Island. It is a long way down, and as I'm quite unsteady at heights, it was all I could do to lean far enough over the frame to get this shot. The water was rough and churning and made me feel even more uneasy. At the same time, I was inspired by the history of this place and impressed with the people who built the jetty in such a wild and powerful environment. It's a spectacular jetty. I remember seeing it myself. The calmness of the cormorants perched on the jetty as the wave churned underneath allowed me to feel some stillness if I focused on them. Absolutely. So I would commend Graham for standing there and giving this a lot of thought at the time of capture, because that's what really helps us convey that message to our audience through that story later on. Let's check out the image. Beautiful. That's exactly how I remember it too, Graham. It was really, really tall. Really tall, really churning, open seas, jetty falling apart. And I believe at the top there was like a winch to wind up supplies and wind up and down even people, sort of hanging over the edge of this cliff. So let's run through. Strong subject, tick, yes. Great light, it's okay. The light's okay. Simplicity, yes, I think it has simplicity. There isn't too many distractions there that I would want to leave out. How would I improve this image? I quite like that the trees in the foreground are blurry because they're not really critical to the photograph itself. We could maybe try and focus some more attention on the jetty by darkening off the edges and maybe adding a little bit more drama. Let's try and do that. Curves. We'll grab a curves layer like we did yesterday quite a bit. I'm going to pull down the black point and the midpoint here. You can see it gives the water a real richness, so we might work on a bit of that too as we go. A lot more drama coming into that water just by playing with the dark element of a curves layer. If we press Command or Control I to invert that over, B for brush, I'll just make that a little smaller on screen for the time being. And maybe we can darken those edges down just a fraction like so. Help to draw some more, just quickly, just rough. And I did see that water really getting a lot more depth by darkening and maybe adding some contrast. So if I add another curves layer, and I grab this little hand icon and I click on the white water and the deep water, it will place 2 points on the curve, and if I pull the deep water down and push the white water up, we'll get a little bit more separation, which will add a little bit more drama into that water, a little bit more punch. Command or Control I, B for brush, and we'll add most of that punch just around the jetty. Something like that. I think we can maybe even darken the edges a little bit more, like we were doing over the previous couple of days. Because it adds drama and it maybe also adds to that level of uncertainty. Let's add a little bit of light onto that jetty. You know, something like that. So we started off, we had the really strong subject, we had the simplicity, the light wasn't great. So all I've really tried to do is add a little bit more drama by playing around with adding some shadow and adding some light here and there, mainly adding a vignette, a dark edge to the image, and we get something like this. Before, after, before, after. Again, it's just different. I mean, I could probably add a little bit more light into the central region as well. You know, something more like that. Before, after. Just a different version of the same thing. Maybe it's an improvement in some people's eyes. Maybe I've wrecked it in other people's eyes. But that's what I would look for. I would say excellent work, finding that strong subject, creating that simplicity. Really, really nice. Really well done. Looks like we've got Cheryl here as well. What's that say there? What's Cherish Arts? I think that's Cheryl. Sue as well. How you doing? Lovely to have everyone here with me. I can't see how many people I've got. Says maybe we've got 5. So I'm not sure if that's the case, but if we've got 5 people, brilliant. I know you can't all hang around while we go through this. I'm only going to get through another 2 or 3 images. I don't want this to go on too long, but maybe on Monday morning we'll load up a few more images and we'll do this again for another hour, or maybe, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday. We'll see how we go. All right, let's move along. We have an image here from Irma, and she says, I was trying to create the feeling of moodiness around the shipwreck, showing off the beauty as well as the harshness of the ocean. Let's take a look. Beautiful work. I love the color palette. Really soft blues and peachy colors, which have really captured a beautiful early morning sunrise feeling here. Simplicity, tick, yes, absolutely. Subject, yes, absolutely. Great light, yes. I think the light has been captured rather nicely here, and the processing is really good. And the story, the moodiness, yes, to a certain degree. To a certain degree. It's got a rather uplifting feeling for me with those beautiful peachy colours and the bright sunshine in the background. But uplifting is a mood, and it has been captured really, really well. How would I improve this image? It looks to be the image is a little bit soft, and I would say I'm not sure why that is the case. It looks to be a long exposure. Maybe it was windy and it was on a tripod and moving around a bit. And I'm completely okay with the softness in the water and the sky, and I'm reasonably okay to have softness everywhere. Let's be honest. Lately, in my own work, I've been producing blurry images on purpose. But there is a real lack of detail in the main subject here. So I would normally you would look to have quite a bit of detail in a subject like this, and then have the softer water around that subject, creating a sense of contrast between the softness and the sharpness, which creates an element of interest in the image. So I think absolutely strong subject, great light, simplicity. You've got all those. I would just maybe go back and revisit and try and tick all those boxes to try and get a slightly sharper, more detailed subject in this image. Is the horizon straight? Yep. Gave you a heart in mouth moment there, thinking that your horizon was out, didn't I? Okay, beautiful, nice work. Let's go on to the next one. Obviously with this critique, some are going to be more detailed than others. Some of the images, I can see things that really are required, whereas this one, I think it's a brilliant image and there's not really much that I could offer on a processing level or a composition level to improve it, but just on a capture level in recapturing that particular image. Beverly says, these are great. Oh, Yannick, how you doing, mate? Hope you're well. Yannick is one of the most talented photographers, as are probably many of these other people watching. But I do know Yannick's work very well, and I'm a huge fan. He has won the Queensland Photographer of the Year a couple of times, and the Landscape Photographer of the Year numerous times as well. So great to have you here, mate. You're putting some pressure on me now as to what I know about photography, and it's not that impressive, really, and so go easy on me. So great to have you, Yannick. Beverly says that these are great and enjoying watching. I hope everyone is as well. And I'll look to do more of these in the future. Terry says, I love sunrises and sunsets. And for the whole 3 weeks, actually there was more to this story. Terry was away for 3 weeks and he says for the whole 3 weeks, he didn't get much good light from the sunrise or the sunsets until our last morning at Nambucca. And Terry has tried to convey the peacefulness and the beauty of this particular morning. All right, absolutely. I love a sunrise and sunset myself. To be honest, I don't photograph them all that often these days. I love enjoying them. But for me, I prefer stormy, overcast, dramatic weather. And it just comes down to whatever our preference is. And it's those differences within our preferences that make our photography different and unique to ourselves. That's part of our style. What we love is what we should go chase. Beautiful. I think, Terry, you've captured the peacefulness. What did Terry say? The peacefulness and the beauty of this morning. Absolutely a beautiful golden sunrise on the horizon there. How would I look to improve this? Got the sun on the rule of thirds. Now, maybe to improve it, maybe we could really run with the rule of thirds. It's not something I strictly stick to all the time. I love central compositions for my big, bold subjects, and I do that a lot. But if we're not going central, we're looking for rule of thirds or compositional balance. And in this case, I think if we look, my question is, do we need these footprints and whatnot in the foreground? Are they adding anything to the story or the beauty or the peacefulness of this image? For me, I wasn't there, but not so much. So at the very least, I think we could move the horizon up to sort of rule of thirds here. Or maybe even a little bit more. You know, we could create something like this. Look at that. That's looking really, really nice. Because maybe we don't need all of that distracting foreground to convey that story that Terry was talking about. While we're there, it looks like we could straighten the horizon. Click on the straighten icon up the top here, and I'm just going to click and hold on one side of the horizon, drag to the other, just straighten that up a little bit. Pop that up a little. Let's click OK, and let's do a before and after check. Before, oh, I've gone too far back there, haven't I? Can I get back to my, no, hang on. Sorry, I messed up. Photoshop tricked me because they changed the undo redo steps not so long back. All right, let me just straighten that up again quickly. Maybe we could even bring this down a bit. Maybe, you know, we could even play with the crop here a little like this. You know, do we need all of that? You know, maybe something like this. Maybe we could come down a little bit more like that. Maybe something like that. What's the undo redo? Control Alt Z, I think. Command Alt Z. Here we go. Before, after, before. Look, it's not a lot different. It's not a lot different, but I think that's a slight improvement. I would also, I don't know, what's that bit in the foreground there, an old log? Yeah, I'd probably leave that. There's a beautiful bird up above the sun here. Look, if I was back there again and you had this same opportunity, I might have, rather than going super duper wide, I'm not sure if it's a 20mm or a 17mm lens, I might have looked to use like a 50mm, and that would have given you maybe something more along the lines of, you know, a tighter crop, you know, something like that even. And then we have the beautiful sun and we have the bird and we have all the good bits, essentially. If we go right back to the beginning and zoom back out, we have something like that there. And what I'm suggesting is that maybe there's just a little bit too much photograph there, a little bit too much info. And if we maybe pull this in like that, condense it a little bit, we get a different version. Is it a better version? I'm not sure. Lastly, let's run through the checklist. Strong subject. The sun kind of is filling that for us, but I would like an even stronger subject, like an old tree on the edge of the water, an old mangrove tree or something like that, or a big rock, or a leading line from one of these high tide marks sort of drifting back out into the ocean there. You know, something stronger on the subject. Great, the light. The light's pretty good. That early morning sunrise golden light's pretty good. Simplicity, you've ticked that box beautifully. Well done there. The processing is really well done as well, so there's not much I would look to do there. Let's do one more. Let's do one more. Anthony's got a question. Adam, do you normally use a mouse or do you use a tablet? I've used a tablet in the past. I'm currently using a mouse, and that sort of came from traveling around Australia in a caravan. I traveled for 2 years in a caravan, and there wasn't really the space to spread out, because when I'm using a tablet, I like to have a mouse too. So I end up having a keyboard, a mouse, and a tablet. A tablet is great for doing little cutouts and, you know, creative Photoshop work, absolutely. But a mouse, you know, you get skilled at whatever you use. So for me, I've been using a mouse for the last 10 years essentially, and I only used a tablet for maybe a couple of months in between that. I did enjoy the tablet, but for me the mouse is doing the job for now. And on an education level, most of my students are using a mouse, so I like to use the same thing as what everyone else is using, so we're all on the same playing field. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll call it a day. We've been running for about 40 minutes, I think, and we'll come back and we'll do some more of these next week. And in fact, when we do these next week, what I'll do is I'll put, it's not in there at the moment, but in the next time we do this kind of live critique, I'll put a Dropbox folder or a Dropbox link in the description, and I'll allow you to upload some more images and descriptive stories about those images so that we can do this for, you know, once a week or something. And if you enjoy this, if people aren't enjoying it and they stop watching, then we'll try something else. But for the time being, if it's enjoyable, let me know and we'll keep going. And if you'd like to participate, let me know in the comments below and I'll set that up for the next time we do this. Okay, Frank says, in this photo, I wish to convey a sense of great solitude and isolation while still conveying the beauty of the natural world. To this end, I waited weeks for the right weather conditions, very misty and light rain, and then further added to the effect by reducing the clarity and sharpness of everything except the tree and rocks. Brilliant. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. Beautiful. Let me just remove those crop signs there. Well done, Frank. Absolutely. Isolation, which is adding to the simplicity. Let's go through it. Strong subject, tick, absolutely. Simplicity, tick, you've nailed that. Absolutely brilliant simplicity. The composition is excellent with that as well. really, really balanced with the tree to the left and the rocks balancing that compositional balance to the right. You could also suggest that this is a rule of thirds image, almost, but it's more based on compositional balance for mine than rule of thirds. Compositional balance just means that we want an equal amount of visual weight on both sides of the image, and for me, the tree is balanced by the rocks, left to right. Okay, great light. The light is complementary to the story. Yes, it probably is. So on that level, if Frank is happy with the light and what this is conveying, it's kind of a cold, misty morning to me, then yeah, absolutely. I think that's a pretty epic job. Any improvement? I mean, the image, this is the kind of image that I produce a lot, I suppose, where we have a big, bold subject, really simplistic. The composition, you know, it's pretty elementary, but it works. And my composition is very simple. There's nothing fancy to it, really. I like big, bold subjects roughly in the middle. There's no mistake on what the photo is about. Could I improve it? Probably not, but for my own eye, I would like to bring a little bit more attention to the subject. And again, this is just me having a play around, and you know, Frank might be completely happy with this, and in which case I might be even changing the story, and that's not something that, you know, Frank needs to do, is change his story because what I do, you know, might look better, I don't know, or worse, or who knows. Let's have a look though. I think we can add a little bit more light and contrast to the tree and really elevate that from the background. Let's try that. Curves. I'm thinking we're going to... Okay, that's pretty aggressive, you probably agree. Command or Control Invert to hide that away. B for brush. I'll just set up my brush settings here. Oh! Hardness down at 0. Let's turn that down too. That came on too strong. Came on a bit scary, didn't it? So essentially what I'm doing is kind of making out like the tree is being spotlit to a certain degree. And you'll see it's also having the effect of really ruining the background. But there's an advanced Photoshop technique called Blend If. And you'll find techniques how to do Blend If on YouTube and whatnot. I won't explain it right now, but essentially if I double click on the blank space next to where it says Curves 1, it's very much like luminosity masking, but much, much easier. And you'll see we have two layers. Forget about the top slider. Forget about that altogether. It doesn't matter at this point. The underlying layer, you can see we can move the black slider and it will remove that effect from the darker pixels first and then the lighter pixels last. But what I want to actually do is try and remove this kind of halo-y light bleed effect from the back of the tree. See how I can do that? So something like that. We then hold down Option or Alt and click on one side or the other of this slider and it will split. Now hopefully we give that a really, really big split like that. And let's see before, after. Before, after. I might even just adjust the mask a little bit and remove some of that mask from the top. And let's just focus down on the foreground and the rocks here. Let's add a little bit of pure golden sunlight. Just having a play around, really, what my eye thinks, using my intuition, I suppose. So we add that brown solid color layer, and then we, of course, in my courses, we run through these really, really much slower. Okay, that's a bit peachy. Let's double click back on this brown layer here. I want it to be less peachy, so more yellow, like that. Click OK. Click on the mask, invert that mask, and oops, using a white brush. Once again, I'm going to need to use Blend If to pull that light out of the background there if I can. It's a real, I mean, it's a bit of an advanced technique, and you'll find it in my more advanced courses. We go into it comprehensively, but it's an incredible technique. Look how we can just pull that light out of some of those areas there and leave it in others. Back to the mask, go back to a black brush, and I'll just dab out. What I'm going to do is just brush that right across the image just to reduce the bleed effect that we've got there, and I'll use mainly blend if to isolate where I want that, so we get something like that. Lastly, if you really wanted to push the point, we could grab a curves layer and maybe add to the drama just by pulling down the black point, pulling down that point, invert that layer. Again, I'm pushing this too far, I know, but you know, use your own artistic I suppose, intuition, and on all your images, don't listen to anyone. If you think, if you think this adds to your story, then go ahead and do so, but otherwise just completely ignore it, and this might be of benefit to someone else with another different image, with a different story, that sort of thinks, yeah, well, actually, I really enjoyed the way that helped that particular image. Curves layer again. I'm going to try and add a little bit more contrast into this grass. I've clicked on that little hand icon to isolate off where my grasses are on this graph, and we can push one up, just like that. In fact, we might push both up. Command invert B for brush. And I can't sort of go into or push that point enough that that I'm really aggressively changing this image, and it's not really something that I have the liberty to do. But I hope Frank appreciates that this might help other people with a different style image, or maybe Frank enjoys this himself. So once again, let's take a look at before and after, and I think Frank did an excellent job. The image was an excellent image. This is just a different version. Before, and then after. We've just tried to lift the subject up away from the background a little bit with a little bit more extra light. Okay, something like that. All right. So once again, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching along. I'm not sure if we had 3 or 5 or 10 or how many we had. We had a lot of comments and a lot of interaction today. DC Official, or Mako DC Official says he loves these and would like to see them weekly. This is good stuff, Adam. I would like to see this weekly. Awesome. Seems like a few people are enjoying this, so let's do it again. Let's come back. Let's plan to do this next Thursday, but in the meantime, we're going to do something Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as well next week. So put it in your diary. The easy way photography, the easy way to, I'm not even looking at the camera, the easy way to make sure that you don't miss these is to click subscribe, which helps the channel as well, and then click the little notification bell as well. And what will happen is a little ding, a little notification will come up on your phone or on your email and tell you that Adam Williams Creative is live, and you can click on that video link and come straight to the video. If you enjoyed it, please click the like button. It all helps. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, love to your family, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.